Kassis' deck does have a lot of spice to it. You know, it does have these copies of 3 copies of Natural Order, a Craterhoof Behemoth, and Edric Spymaster of Trest, but it's probably still operating inside the Shardless Bug shell. If you look at it, it does have Deathrite Shaman, Baleful Strix, and Shardless Agent, complementing a heavy discard suite.
And a big problem for Ely in this matchup is the absence of Wasteland. That's one of the best tools you can have against 12 post strategies, and Ely has no such disruption.
All right, Jeremiah, by virtue of being the number 2 seed, he'll be on the play. We see a Glimmer Post into an Expedition map starting on his side.
And Ely is contemplating Force of Willing this, which speaks to how good the matchup is for blue-green Cloud Post. Ely has to keep Jeremiah off of assembling a critical mass of Locusts, and that's just going to be very difficult to do. The blue-green Cloud Post deck is very redundant in that regard.
Yeah, one of the benefits of playing blue-green Cloud Post, I would imagine, against these discard and control strategies is that you can't Thoughtseize lands and you can't counter lands, and lands are really the driving force behind the Cloud Post strategy.
Yeah, you need Wasteland is the big tool, and of course, Blood Moon effects are quite potent against it, but Ely's trying to play pretty much honest Magic against it, and that's very difficult to do.
All right, so a turn 2 play from Rudolph is just Misty Rainforest. He's leaving up what is probably an Expedition map crack on the end of the turn. So this is going to put some pressure on Ely to get some sort of offensive going. On end step, he's going to go ahead and Brainstorm here, see if he can find some action for his second turn.
Now, what makes this matchup potentially better for Ely than what a traditional bug deck would bring to the table is the fact that Ely has access to Natural Order for Progenitus, so he can kill much faster than the average bug deck. That said, it's still going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, the Natural Order for Progenitus and actually Craterhoof Behemoth, those both do provide pretty good speed-based options for Ely. Rudolph's deck is powerful, but does not have many ways to answer creatures, so if Ely can get a fast Natural Order draw, there's not too many ways that Jeremiah can interact with it.
No, but he can be much faster, and this is a deck with Emrakul and Kozilek, and he's not just trying to show and tell those into play, although he can. He is fully capable of hard casting those large creatures.
And that's a Bayou there for Ely, a heavily miscut Bayou.
Yeah, Ely has no end of awesome foils, miscuts, errors, and so forth. So expect a lot of this throughout the match.
Yeah, so you see, this is turn 2. We'll see what kind of offensive he can mount here. If you look at Ely's deck, it really does take the shape of a Shardless deck. So his main plays, you'd see, would be Shardless Agent, Baleful Strix, Deathrite Shaman, Noble Hierarch, Scavenging Ooze, and he has a Vendilion Click in the deck as well. And his turn 2 play is going to be one of those. It's going to be a Baleful Strix to net him a card. Gets him on the board, but not a very fast clock yet.
No, that is one of the slower clocks that you can generate in Legacy.
Yeah, and interesting enough, Rudolph opts not to crack Expedition map on his end step. Instead, he draws, makes Misty Rainforest for the turn, and just simply passes back.
Yep, no rush. Probably has nothing big to cast just yet, and wants a little more flexibility with that Expedition map.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I expected a end step finding of Cloud Post just to get that tap land out of the way, but it'll be interesting to see what texture is in Jeremiah's hand. We saw in round 8, we saw Jeremiah win to make it into the top 8, and certainly seems like a veteran with the Cloud Post list.
Yeah.
And for the turn, Ely's going to go ahead and cast Shardless Agent. That's going to cascade into Abrupt Decay. That's going to force the issue on Jeremiah's Expedition map.
Yeah, Jeremiah may have wanted to hold on to that Expedition map to see what exactly he needed. For example, if he found a variety of locusts, maybe he wants that Expedition map to find Eye of Ugin instead, but this Abrupt Decay forces the action.
Yeah, it looks like before he makes the decision, he's going to go ahead and Brainstorm, getting to put back some cards before he shuffles with Expedition map and, well, with Misty Rainforest. He brainstorms into Emrakul, Top, and Glacial Chasm. Glacial Chasm a 1-of in his deck. I don't think it's the weapon he's looking for in this matchup.
No, this is another Expedition map / crop rotation bullet that he has access to, but Glacial Chasm much more for shutting the door against aggressive strategies rather than a matchup like Ely's. Although it still could come up. I mean, it's a reasonable answer if Ely's able to get one of his large creatures into play, but that's going to be a secondary option for Jeremiah.
He's going to go ahead and get one of those Cloud Posts. So Ely swings in for 1, putting Rudolph down to 18. He has 2 fetches and a hit. He gained life off Glimmer Post. But Ely is still with not too much of an offensive going.
No. And the counterspells in Ely's hand are helpful, but they only are so much of a reprieve.
Yeah, I mean, counterspells, he has Force of Will, right?
Yes.
And that's actually, 3 Force of Will is the only counters magic he has in his list.
Yeah, Shardless Agent prices it into not being able to play cards like Spell Pierce or Counterspell.
Right. All right, we'll untap this for Jeremiah's 4th turn. So far, Jeremiah has one thing that I've been impressed with this Cloud Post deck, because it seems so slow. You know, in the first 2 turns, he doesn't really play anything. He's just playing lands. But we saw his deck really flips the switch. It's very fair up until that turn when it's really unfair.
All that Jeremiah is really concerned about is preventing himself from getting killed before he's able to do his powerful stuff. That's why you see things like Glacial Chasm, 2 copies of Moment's Peace in his main deck. He's just trying to pass through combat to get to the point where he casts Primeval Titan, from which point winning the game is elementary.
Yeah, we see Cloud Post, the play there for Jeremiah. Passes the turn back, and we're on to Ely's turn 4. So far, he's only been able to really put a 1-1 and a 2-2 on the board. Not too much of a clock.
Also, please remember, we're going to be giving away 3, 6, and 12 months of Star City Games premium content throughout the elimination round, so make sure to stay tuned for that as well.
And swings for 3. That puts Jeremiah down to 15. And Brainstorm from Jeremiah. So we still just setting up his hand here. We see a Moment's Peace, Repeal, another Divining Top in his hand.
But no way to really shuffle his deck at this point besides the crop rotations, which aren't guaranteed to work because they can be countered.
Yeah, and it seems like Jeremiah has held off on casting a crop rotation for that exact reason. Granted, there's no read he can get on a counter spell. The only counters that we said before in Ely's deck are Force of Wills. I mean, it's really hard to read someone for a Force of Will. You can't look at their mana and find that out. And he's going to open himself up here. Jeremiah goes for crop rotation. And I think this would get a Force of Will.
I think the fact that crop rotation is powerful in and of itself in this deck, and the fact that it represents a shuffle effect means Ely is going to strongly consider Force of Willing this.
Yeah, he has put back 2 cards with Brainstorm, so there is added value on this crop rotation.
Now, all this would be a little bit different if Ely had access to Wasteland in his list. Maybe he could fight a more conventional battle here, but he has to be concerned with Jeremiah getting a critical mass of mana.
Yeah, and that's a pretty expensive Force of Will for Ely. He has to pitch Vendilion Click to counter the crop rotation, a card which I imagine he planned to cast. But that said, he will LD Jeremiah there and lock him on top with that Brainstorm. So a lot of damage done here. And Jeremiah's going to go for another crop rotation. This actually will leave him without colored mana if he goes ahead and gets something like Cloud Post.
I think at this point he's just trying to get enough colorless mana and shuffle his deck. Maybe try to set up Sensei's Divine Top and just try to find his lands from there.
I certainly need to have enough mana to top as much as he needs to. It could be problematic for Jeremiah if something like Primeval Titan finds his way into his hand.
So Ely fought over the first crop rotation. Is he willing to fight over the second one?
Do we know, does he have a second Force of Will?
I believe he has one in hand. I don't know if he has the complementary blue card.
Yeah, if he has, I feel like if you're in for countering 1 crop rotation, I would have to think you're in for countering 2. I guess one of the dangers for Ely is if he counters the second one and has access to the Force of Will, he's really just down to 1-1 and 2-2.
Yeah, and against a deck with Moment's Peace in it and a lot of draw steps, that might not be a fast enough of a clock.
All right, second one, and it is another Vendilion Click and another Force of Will countering this crop rotation.
So overall, I agree with the logic applied here by Ely. Once you're in for the first one, it feels like you're in for the second one.
All right, so Jeremiah down to 2 lands. He's going to tap that Cloud Post for 2, play Divining Top, activate it, and you see the cards he has there are a Tropical Island, a Crop Rotation, and then third one down was a Pithing Needle. So you may try to get that Crop Rotation shuffle in before he draws the Needle, or at least use top to bypass the Needle.
Yeah. You can see Jeremiah holding on to 2 copies of Moment's Peace right now. That gives him, again, just a lot of time.
Yeah, the first one, this is actually only a life gain of 3 with that Moment's Peace. But as you see, if Jeremiah's planning to tap out a lot, then, I mean, there's no reason for him to not start using Moment's Pieces now. He has 4 Moment's Pieces available to him.
Yeah, he's likely to be tied up with Sensei's Divining Top operations for a little while here, trying to get his mana set up. So mana is going to be at a premium here.
And there is a trick which we saw Jeremiah use frequently in his last match He was oftentimes using the interaction between Sensei's Divining Top and Repeal to draw an extra card. Now, against a deck that plays Abrupt Decay, that's a little riskier.
Still, it's not like this Repeal is great against the Baleful Strix Charlotte's Agent deck, so maybe he's willing to absorb that risk.
Yeah, it opens him up to getting losing his top and his Repeal. If you know, so he does this, he taps, he puts the top trigger on the stack of draw card, then in response he repeals his own top, draws the top, draws the card off top.
At this stage, I feel like Jeremiah has to be pretty happy about being able to convert this Repeal into just a fresh card.
Yeah, and on Ely's turn, he gets a lot more on the board. It's going to be a 3-for-1 with Charlotte's Agent into Baleful Strix into a card draw. And now he's up to 6 power. That's a 2-turn clock. Well, it would be if it weren't for all these moments pieces in Jeremiah's hand.
Yep, the one in the graveyard and then the one in his hand that represents 3 fogs. That's quite a bit.
Can see if he can get a Deathrite Shaman to maybe cancel out some of those moments pieces. So far, the answer is no, but Ely's going to try for it with a Brainstorm. And we may see Jeremiah go for the extra card here.
Still not finding a lot to do with Repeal. Maybe Jeremiah is willing to hold off for one more moment here in the event that Ely plays Deathrite Shaman. That might be worthy of repealing here instead of the Divining Top.
Yeah, we'll see Jeremiah with enough mana to spin top, tap to draw card, and repeal top. So he can draw 2 and spin. Ely, you're right though, fetching to get a 5th land. This does seem like a Deathrite Shaman.
That is a very legacy set of interactions right there.
Yeah, just
a lot of operations to grind out a little bit of value.
See, and it's not Deathrite, it's actually Thoughtseize. And that's going to be pretty good here. Jeremiah may not want to do that interaction with the Thoughtseize on Ely's side. That would mean he would lose his Divining Top. All right, he's going to go ahead and float a mana. He's actually going to make that play. He's going to repeal the Divining Top. So it should be either a colorless floating, depending on whether or not he's spun the top. So bounces the top off repeal, and then draws a card off the Divining Top activation. And now that last mana goes to spin the top to get him 3 deeper.
Yeah, great operations there by Jeremiah.
Really, that's one of the, I'd say, some of the more confusing things that can go on, especially if you're new to, responding to your own abilities in the stack. If you're like, wait, what just happened there?
It's awkward just because you would assume Divining Top would be part of the cost, but it's
Right.
on resolution of the tap ability. So it works a little differently than many similar cards do.
And actually, Jeremiah's hand, somewhat resistant to Thoughtseize simply because it doesn't have too much gas in it. 2 Divining Tops, so Ely can't take him off Divining Top, in addition to a Pithing Needle, a Moment's Peace, and a Crop Rotation.
So not a lot to do here. That Needle, with not a lot of value in this matchup, can't go after the Divining Top because there's 2 copies of that. The only real thing to take here is the Crop Rotation. Not great for Jeremiah, for Ely to take necessarily, but the rest of his hand is sort of silly to attack with a Thoughtseize.
A Glimmer Post from Jeremiah gains him 3 more life, up to 15. Also means he now has access to 6 mana. And this is going to be a game where Jeremiah, he has 3 fogs remaining. And so he basically has 3 turns with these tops to find the kill he's looking for.
Yeah, and that is a lot of time.
That's something that we've seen, and we saw this when he played in round 8 as well. As opposed to a lot of Cloud Post decks, or traditional 12 Post decks, where you see them really just trying to power out big threats. Jeremiah's deck's actually somewhat slow. It really just sits around and does nothing. And we saw him do this with a Glacial Chasm earlier too, and until it wins, and then it just goes straight for a win.
Right.
So here's turn number 1 of the fog turns, so you could say.
And the tough thing about these moments pieces, not only does it give Jeremiah a lot of time, but it shuts off Ely's sort of powerful secondary option, which is going in naturally order for something.
Right. Swing for 6 here for Ely. Jeremiah could, in theory, take it. Yeah, he decides not to. He's going to go ahead and flashback Moment's Peace. And then
Trying to maximize his mana efficiency here and get the spell out of the graveyard before Deathrite Shaman could become a factor.
Yeah, he does have an extra mana to spin top with here too. Remember that Cloud Post taps for 3, so that was 4 mana he had. You see Show and Tell, Bazooka Bog. I don't think he's too happy about that. One other card, we'll see what that is when he draws it. And Ely, more cards, more Shardless Agent, more 2-for-1s. Eclipse, Craterhoof Behemoth, and Brainstorm will be the free card. So looking at Eli's deck, we're trying to think what cards he has that can actually interact with these Moments pieces. And from my side of the board, it looks like the answer is Deathrite Shaman.
Deathrite Shaman, Force of Will, not a lot. He's just going to have to slog through them.
Yeah. To make room in this bug deck, I would think about Eli's deck as Shardless Bug, but he's playing a natural order package instead of playing any of the planeswalkers you'd expect out of bug.
Now, these Deathrite Shamans are very good, both taxing the Moments piece potentially, and just providing a clock that can deal damage outside of combat.
Yeah. Jeremiah's going to go ahead and top to draw a second card, and this second card is Primeval Titan.
Uh-oh.
And Jeremiah doesn't have the second green, but he does have Show and Tell, and he's bringing a Titan over to Show and Tell.
And keep in mind here, Eli is not threatening lethal on the way back. So even if Jeremiah doesn't even have to go get Glimmer Posts.
Yeah, he can get Cloud Posts and Eye of Ugins, which are the backbone of the Cloud Post strategy.
And Jeremiah is doing all this with access to a Moments piece still left over in his hand, so he has one fog for down the line.
Yeah, he doesn't have green mana at the moment. So he may have to take this hit, and then he'll fog the next hit.
Right. But the Primeval Titan on defense is also locking down the Charlotte's agents from being able to attack, so.
And he's going way deeper than that. He got Cloud Post and Glacial Chasm. So we saw Glacial Chasm. For those of you watching in the top 8, we saw that card, but this is kind of like another Moments piece style effect for his deck. He brings into play, he has to sack a land to it, so there's a bit of a cost, but we saw him pay for this card for many turns. He can't attack, but he also can't take damage.
This card is an odd duck from Ice Age. They don't make lands like this anymore.
No, well, they do have actually a rule in design right now where lands have to tap for mana. The idea that, since that's their basic function, it's unfriendly to have lands that don't tap for mana.
Correct. They were willing to make that sacrifice with Dark Depths just because they were trying to harken back to previous designs.
Exactly. It was intentional,
Right.
I think they did the same thing with it. They made a giant Leviathan in the set as well with horrendous drawbacks that you could never cast. Kind of was harkening back to old cards too. It was that Yokel Mortar, I think. It was terrible. You know, like wanted to eat half your lands or something.
A throwback to the time where R&D thought that Sarah Angel was too powerful, but that Necropotent should be reprinted in core sets. A simpler time for Magic.
Let me tell you, if you wanted a 9/9 for 9, you better pay 9 to untap it.
Get ready to pay a ton of life, sacrifice a creature every turn. If you fail the upkeep, you get Stone Rain, and this thing taps and deals 5 to you. But
That's what you get for summoning such things.
Dark Ritual, Necropotents, that's fine. Do your thing.
So Jeremiah, on that turn, he sacrifices his last colored source, to the Glacial Chasm. And he's going to pass back to Eli. Now, of note, Deathrite Shaman is a loss of life ability, so Eli can still deal some damage to Jeremiah here under Glacial Chasm.
The issue here is that the Glimmer Posts give Jeremiah quite a cushion.
Right, and he has a Titan. He gets at least one more swing off this Titan that can go find more Cloud Posts, Glimmer Posts, Eye of Ugins. The kind of things that are very good for him in the matchup. So first upkeep, Jeremiah's going to pay 2. There is some incremental damage here between Deathrite activations and paying for this Glacial Chasm, which suggests that Jeremiah maybe can't pay for this Chasm for too long.
Well, and here comes the Needle. That's the last piece of the puzzle here. Now he can Needle Deathrite Shaman, and Eli's running out of angles of attack.
Yeah, the Needling of Shaman gives him plenty of time. And we saw his draw there, actually an excellent draw. He drew Vesuva for the turn. So he can actually... What Vesuva allows him to do is maybe he can Vesuva a Cloud Post, suicide the Titan to get a Cloud Post and an Eye of Ugin, and then set up to start Eldraziing his opponent.
Yeah. And Emrakul is the loop here. I mean, it's not show and tell it in Emrakul and hope that the one attack is good enough. It is a cast and full time walk and can be looped as well. So that Needle is now set to Deathrite Shaman. And Eli running out of ways to present an angle of attack.
Yeah, so we see here, back on Jeremiah's turn. I'll see where he goes with this. He does have Needle on the Deathrites now. Has spun a top. Still plenty of mana available. And he's going to go ahead, and it looks like he likes one of his top 3 cards, so he wants to get that card before he swings the Titan to shuffle. Willing to give away his top for that. And makes sense. It's an Expedition map.
And at this point, Expedition Map is an incredibly powerful card. I mean, it represents so much utility and so much mana.
It's Expedition map. The play there, Jeremiah is floating plenty of mana off these Cloud Posts. He's floating 3. Going to play Vesuva, presumably on Cloud Post, as it's now hanging out with the Cloud Post. And he's just going to pass here. Not swinging the Titan just yet. He's going to be able to draw the top next turn.
I believe next turn, this turn he can go get Eye of Ugin. Next turn, Primeval Titan, get enough Cloud Posts to generate enough mana to go find and cast Emrakul in the same turn.
Yeah, so if he gets Eye of Ugin, plays Eye of Ugin, Titan can swing, even get 2 Glimmer Posts. Doesn't matter whether they're Glimmer Posts or Cloud Posts. It'll mean that the 3 untapped Cloud Posts will tap for 7 apiece. So that's 21 mana. So he can use that to go ahead and pay 7 to find Emrakul, be down to 14, and thanks to Eye of Ugin, Emrakul will only cost 13. So absolutely right, he will be able to Emrakul next turn. I think one of the powerful things about Cloud Post is just the fact that the lands make mana on an X squared projection trajectory here. 1 to 4 to 9 to 16. It gets huge quickly.
Yeah.
And we're on to Ely's turn. He has Natural Order, showing that out of his deck.
Getting Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, and I guess that he wants to, if Jeremiah doesn't have the kill, which even though the kill's on the board, say he messes it up, he wants fewer moments pieces, would be my guess. That's his last way of interacting.
Yeah.
It's not a good way of interacting, especially not with a card like Glacial Chasm, but I think it's Ely's only way of interacting. Yeah, he doesn't have a green creature like Viridian Shaman to get that could go and blow up the Pithing Needle and free up Death Rates. And there, as called, Expedition map goes and gets Eye of Ugin.
And I believe this is going to be the last piece of the puzzle. You can play the Eye. He goes and gets 2 Glimmer Posts. That means his Cloud Posts each tap for 7 mana apiece.
Yeah.
Am I looking at that correctly?
Yeah, we've mentioned that. So he gets 21 mana, 7 of it goes to find Emrakul, 13 of it goes to cast Emrakul,
Yeah.
and he's there. Not to mention he gains 14 life in the process.
Right. Just couldn't believe myself there for a second. Wanted to double check.
Yeah, he draws another Primeval Titan. Unnecessary, though. All the pieces are in his hand. So here's the swing from Rudolph. It's a suicide charge for Primeval Titan. But it's going to go ahead and attack. And here we go, finding some Locus cards. Some loci, as we had said earlier.
That's the plural?
Well, we know the plural of focus is foci. So Locus should be loci.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm not sure either. That's the best I have.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, and actually, he determines he doesn't need as much mana. He's gonna go for the infinite turns here. This is Caracas plus Emrakul, and he may actually need that because of these Baleful Strix. Emrakul actually isn't safe to attack. He can trade with a Baleful Strix. I think Jeremiah can still find a win through that anyway, but he's gonna go with Eye and Caracas. Things do get easier. So yeah, he has 6, 18, 20. And 20 is exactly enough mana between the two. So 20 is 7 to find Emrakul, 13 to cast Emrakul. Jeremiah, one step ahead of us, realizing he doesn't need to get two posts. He just needs to get 1 and get a Caracas to further the engine.
Yeah. Although, in fairness, even if the Emrakul were to die next turn, then that would get shuffled back in. Eye of Ugin would do its thing. But yeah, this is a little bit easier.
Yeah, so now every turn he can Caracas, bounce Emrakul, recast Emrakul. So all the remaining turns will be Jeremiah's.
And Ely's going to make him play it out. Just,
all right.
you know.
Sure. As he's allowed to do. Yeah, and but to be fair, before he takes the extra turn, before he bounces the Emrakul, he's going to annihilate for 6 each time.
Oh, things are getting pretty rough for Ely here. He's facing down infinite turns plus -6 permanents a turn plus down 15 life if he gets hit. So.
All right. Blocks with Baleful Strix, but no damage dealt. Jeremiah will simply put Emrakul back in his hand. Ely sees that he knows the play, and game 1 goes over to Jeremiah Rudolph.
And, you know, that's going to be something of a disheartening game for Ely there because with the exception of having a not having a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman, that's about as good of an opening as Ely can really hope for. He had some amount of pressure. He had a couple copies of Force of Will. Not a bad draw overall, given how much dead air he has. He's able to Force of Will 2 crop rotations in a spot where Jeremiah was really looking to shuffle his deck and find other lands, and he still just got overpowered there.
Yeah, I mean, it's this power of these, it's these cards that you wouldn't expect to be so good. You know, Moment's Peace and Glacial Chasm have been doing great work for Jeremiah in both his round 8 match and during the top 8.
Yeah. So, welcome back to the booth. It is trivia time, and the rules for this are as follows. I'm going to ask you a question, tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responders, one will be chosen at random for 3 free months of Search Games Premium content. This is about accuracy, not speed, so do not worry about submitting your question first, just accurately. And please note that this contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com. Twitch TV is not affiliated with this giveaway in any fashion. So Jeremiah Rudolph playing blue-green 12 post. He has a variety of defensive measures in his deck to buy him some time. He has a fog effect with flashback from Odyssey. 2 copies in his main deck. Name that card.
All right. Please be sure to be following at SCG Live and make sure you have the hashtag SCG Premium. And at the end of all of our top 8 matches, we will select one person for 3 months of Star City Games Premium.
So delving into the sideboard here, let's see what Ely's got to shore this up a little bit.
All right, well, looking at Ely's sideboard, he does have some cards that can interact. The biggest one that he has, and this is a heavy hitter, he has 2 Null Rod in his sideboard.
We saw Null Rod put in a lot of work against Death and Taxes, shutting down Aether Vial and Swords earlier on. It's going to do a lot of great work here too. Expedition Map and Sensei's Divining Top, both non-operative with Null Rod in play, Ely's best form of interaction in the matchup.
Yeah, on top of that, when we see all these bauble-like effects that Jeremiah has, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ely use a card like Heartwood Storyteller in this matchup as well. It's a little expensive, but has the potential to draw him quite a few cards.
And, you know, it's a mixture of pressure. It's not great pressure, but some amount of pressure. But the bigger issue is that Ely has some Thought Seizes, he has some Force of Wills, and then not a lot else matters. So him finding those cards in bulk is significant here. And I agree with you that I think Heartwood Storyteller will get the nod here.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy to see that card see some play. I know when it was originally printed in Future Sight, there was a lot of hype behind that card, and I never really found like it felt its way in. It never felt like it found its way into a constructed format.
It's kind of because until very recently, spells ruled and creatures stink. Right. So it's really hard to build a deck that's capitalizing on the symmetry, because it means that your deck stinks, because it's just all
you're all creatures, they're all spells. Why would I want to do that?
But in Legacy, there's so many decks that are so spell dense that even if your opponent occasionally draws some cards, you're happy because the upside that you're getting is so much larger. And then the rest of the sideboard, not really a lot to note here. A Dryad Arbor that he may want to go to because it accelerates his kill a little bit with Natural Order and is also just another random threat, but I don't think he's really going to want to go near anything else. On Jeremiah's side, 2 copies of Ensnaring Bridge, 4 Phyrexian Revokers, a Crozan Grip, 3 Mind Bait Trap, 3 Swan Song, and 2 Karn Liberated. I don't think he's going to want Ensnaring Bridge against a deck full of cheap, low-power creatures, and Abrupt Decay is in Ely's list. The rest of the sideboard here, not a lot going on.
I'm not sure Jeremiah wants anything out of the sideboard.
I think the Karns are reasonable because, you know, Ely can't keep him off of getting to 7 mana that easily. The only thing that he can try to do is stop whatever's coming eventually. He can fight over Primeval Titan. So Jeremiah's bottleneck, in my mind, is over ways to win the game. He has Primeval Titan, which is his best way to win, and he has his large Eldrazi, but that's predicated on him getting a lot of mana into play, and Ely's Thought Seizes and Force of Wills might prevent land search effects and crop rotation. Null Rod can shut down the Expedition Map and so forth. So Karn just gives Jeremiah another high impact card that requires less setup than his Eldrazi.
All right. A couple of updates from across the top 8. The match on our backup match for this is JD Neer playing Blue-Green Infect against Craig Krempels playing Blue-White-Red Delver. Is gone to 3 games. This is a match that you said was going to be difficult for our 1 seed JD Neer. I agree, but he has managed to take 1 of the games, and the question is, will he be able to get the 3rd, or will Craig Krempels rule the day and move into the top 4?
At the SCG Open at Atlanta a few months ago, we had a very memorable match, I believe, in the semifinals between Tom Ross and Michael Majors. Tom Ross was sawing through people all day long with Blue-Green Infect, and he finally ran into Michael Majors, who just had way too much relevant 1 mana and 0 mana disruption, was finally able to stop it. Now, the Infect deck is still incredibly explosive, fully capable of winning the game as early as turn 2, but it is tough to beat a deck with Source of Plowshares, Lightning Bolt, Force of Will, Grim Lavamancer, Umezawa's Jitte, et cetera, et cetera. These are all tough cards to slog through.
Absolutely. Remember, that is on the other half of the bracket, so that match could meet this one in the finals, but each of them will have different opponents in the top 4.
And Craig is the 8th seed. He just barely snuck in, and our Infect Pilot is the 1 overall seed. And it's hard to break serve against blue-green Infect, even if your match is very good, because the deck is just so explosive.
Yeah, the deck, despite being a deck that attacks, I would still say in Legacy it falls squarely into the combo deck camp.
I think I equate it to something close to Burn, where you can occasionally win in something resembling a conventional game of Magic, but you are trying to be relatively non-interactive.
Right. In a lot of ways, it's a burn deck where all your burn spells double, but have this really awkward clause that if you don't have a creature, they don't work.
Yeah.
So, but I think actually the gameplay, that's a decent comparison to compare the gameplay of Infect to the gameplay of Burn.
Yeah. Sometimes you go, Goblin Guide, kill your guy, hit you again. There's some of that going on, but that's the exception. Sometimes the Infect deck can just win by playing a guy, attacking, pumping with Pendlehaven, pump it with Pendlehaven, play another guy. That can happen.
Yeah.
But it's the backup plan. You're just trying to invigorate Berserk people.
Both really, really efficient cards. I played a bit, against Infect in Modern, and that's a deck that's actually pretty scary as well and decently fast. And it's really fun when then you go to Legacy and you think, oh, wait, there's an Infect deck in Legacy? And then you look at the kind of cards it gets to play and you see, things like Invigorate, like a 0 mana pump spell, and Berserk, which is just pretty much, it's a 1 mana double strike card.
And I find Infect to be charming for a lot of the same reasons that I find Goblins to be charming. It is drawing from Magic's entire card pool to make something happen. You have, Berserk, which is a year 0 card. You have Invigorate, which is about a year 10 card. And then you have the Infect creatures, which is roughly a year 20 card. And that's the core synergy of the deck. And then there's some other utility broken up from all over Magic's time. So it is sweet to see a deck that really maximizes on the longevity of the card pool.
I think you are one of the only people to describe blue-green Infect in Legacy as charming.
Well, yeah, it's charming. And it feels like a Legacy deck should. I mean, there's there's elements of basic rudimentary Magic going on, but it's definitely off the deep end. Steroided out, amped up, whatever you want to call it. It is kind of the best of both worlds.
When you look at the cards, you certainly have them from all over Magic. You have, Odyssey, Zendikar, Ice Age, Scourge, Legends, Scars of Mirrodin, all cards from all these sets in the main deck.
Yeah, it's all over the place, which is awesome. 2 different Legends cards. I mean, that's pretty rare. You don't often see that.
Pendlehaven and Sylvan Library?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You can see, I suppose, Caracas, Sylvan Library.
Caracas Moat. Pretty common.
Caracas Sylvan, if we go back to Maverick, right? Caracas Sylvan Library happens.
Nether Void, the Abyss.
Sometimes that sounds like a sweet deck.
Sometimes appear in the same list. One in the main, one on the board, but
not actually that many cards out of Legends that see play, are there?
No, not really. The set is full of completely busted cards that prevent your opponent from taking game actions, and then 7 mana 4/4s with drawbacks. That's pretty much the whole set.
A full cycle of enchantments that remove specific types of land walk.
Right.
If I know from a modern design standpoint, going back and reading Legends is a blast.
It is a hoot. It is a hoot.
Some of the cards are broken. Just you read Manager and you're like, wow, that's a card, and then there are things, they're like decided, they rather than printing creatures, there should be about 30 cards for very narrow hosing effects.
Yep.
And
the flavor is very high on that set, and that's an element that a lot of old Magic sets have. The flavor is a 10 out of 10, and then the design and development is somewhere south of 10 out of 10. And the flavor is insane on the individual designs too. Like, what would a moat do?
Right. Well, you can't flavor the mode. I think my favorite flavor from the older sets goes back to Arabian Nights when you have, Desert, that's a card we've played with, right? Mm-hmm. Taps to deal a damage to an attacker. And then my favorite one is Camel. Okay, so what does a Camel do? Well, Camel is a 0/1 with banding, with protection from Desert.
Right, because you can ride the Camel through the desert.
Not only that, creatures banded to Camel gain protection from Desert.
Yeah. Mother Nature designed that card. That was an R&D. I mean, that's... that's that's just
that's how it works.
What else? That's what a Camel does.
The cards do just what you think they would do. All right. We are underway with game 2 here. Ely this time on the play with Natural Order Bug down a game trying to take the match against Jeremiah Rudolph. Leads on Noble Hierarch, and while Jeremiah responds with a Cloud Post.
Yep. Good opening here for Jeremiah. That's the base, just getting the mana online. And Ely's got to get something cobbled together pretty fast here.
And he responds in kind. He, with the 3 mana, plays a Deathrite Shaman and a Scavenging Ooze. So already with 3 creatures on the board as soon as turn 2. And we see Jeremiah for the turn. Vesuvas his Cloud Post, makes a Divining Top. And instead of spinning the Divining Top, he's going to go ahead and I think throw out Expedition Map as well. He's going faster this round.
This is some asymmetrical warfare right now. I mean, Ely here with a 1-2, a 1-1 that makes mana, a 2-2.
They're both ramping each turn. I don't see what's asymmetrical about this. See, Ely has 4 mana, Jeremiah has 4 mana.
Yeah, it's comparable.
It's fine. Ely's mana ramping is +1 though. He has linear ramp. Jeremiah has exponential ramp. For those of you not familiar with that means that Jeremiah is going to win this game of who can ramp faster.
Yeah, there's got to be some pretty significant destruction from Ely. I mean, at this point, it feels like almost no card in his deck besides Thoughtseize or Force of Will even really matters.
Yeah. Well, he still does have that pair of Null Rods in the sideboard.
That is true. Those
matter a lot, but they actually kind of need to happen right now, too, before Jeremiah can crack this Expedition map.
Yeah. The Null Rod would be a huge draw here.
Ely brainstorms, puts 2 back. Can he find a Null Rod? Interestingly enough, Null Rod, a card you don't typically see outside of Vintage. It does see some play in Legacy, but you know, not a huge amount to play, despite having a very powerful effect.
Yeah, and Ely brainstorming again here. I think he understands the severity of the situation, and he is digging for a Null Rod. I played 1 Null Rod in the sideboard of the Zoo deck that I top-8'd the Invitational with a couple years ago.
Null Rod, 2 mana from Weatherlight. You can't activate artifacts. It's plain and simple.
It was
Stony Silence, but colorless, right?
It was a mistake to have in my sideboard.
Didn't do anything?
Yeah, well, there was one spot where I was playing against a black-white, Stoneblade deck.
Right.
My opponent Thoughtseize me, and I had brought in both Null Rod and Umazawa's Jete, and those were the 2 cards in my hand. So it's like, all right, man, that's kind of sweet. You choose.
No matter which one they pick.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh.
I know it was not great deck building. I gotta throw it out there. It was not my best deck.
What I do know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that it is a large player in Vintage, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a format divided by, Time Vault, Moxes,
Soul Ring,
all
bunch
sorts of stuff.
Some of the Magics, the hidden history Magic, some of the most broken cards are artifacts.
Now, the thing is that effect is symmetrical, and so there's only a small class of decks that can use Null Rod themselves, but it does see some Vintage play.
Well, ideally, I would cast something big and then in the same turn, and then follow it up with a Null Rod.
Yeah.
It's kind of like casting an Armageddon. I play something, then kill all the lands.
Chalice of the Void can play a similar role, too.
Yeah.
Play all my stuff and then Chalice.
Play all my Moxes, then Chalice for 0, say go. That sounds great. All right, and back to Jeremiah. Ely continued to just ramp more. He had a 3rd mana creature in a Noble Hierarch, and he hit for 4 with a double Exalted Scavenging Ooze. But Jeremiah, just the very simple progression of Cloud Post, make another Cloud Post, make another Cloud Post. So I don't know if you've ever played some of the newer Duel of the Planeswalkers, but they have these encounter decks where the computer does the same thing every single game and you have to beat it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's very silly. I think my favorite one is they go turn 1 Forest Helix Pinnacle,
okay,
and then they play a Cloud Post on every consecutive turn.
So you just have to beat someone in 10 turns or whatever it is?
Yeah, and they don't stop at 4 Cloud Posts. It's like Cloud Post 5, Cloud Post 6, and they just continue to feed all the mana into Helix Pinnacle every turn, and you have to beat them before they Helix Pinnacle you out.
Okay. I feel like most draft decks would be able to do that, so.
Yeah, I want to say they have something else they do, and I'm not. I think they have something else they do. Maybe they have some sort of control, but it's not. I think it's like a wall.
I think it's like Stream of Life at some point or something?
You probably couldn't beat them if they Stream of Life.
I
mean, the idea of playing 7 consecutive Cloud Posts is fundamentally broken.
Right.
But whoever designed that, I just want to give them a congratulations. That's sweet.
It is sweet. So Jeremiah pretty far away from getting this Ensnaring Bridge to do anything productive, but it's just another angle of attack / lock that Ely has to fight through at some point here.
Yeah, we see Jeremiah did not get the 3rd post there. He got his green mana source, made Ensnaring Bridge. Currently 4 cards in his hand. Among them, there is a Karn, however. So he actually does have a card that's not purely defensive. He does have a Moment's Peace, but Karn joins as well.
And it's just tough because Ely's forms of interaction are so limited. You know, I mean, he can attack with these creatures. They're pretty anemic. He can maybe activate a Deathrite Shaman, but it's really hard for him to stem the tide. He is at the mercy of the quality of Jeremiah's draw.
All right, being informed that the plural of locus is loci.
Okay.
All right. I know I should know that. I should study more conic sections and other geometry and know the plural of locus. But focus is foci. That one's true.
Jeremiah here spinning his top, trying to find
Some of the
I mean, he has Moment's Peace here to buy himself some time. He has Karn in hand, which, I mean, it's a setup where he's pretty reasonably protected. I mean, he can start plussing Karn, and Ely's in no position to really threaten it.
Apparently, last game when he summoned Primeval Titan, Jeremiah broke the rules there because he had his invitation card.
So here is a Vendilion Click and a turn.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, Ely's got to get rid of that Moment's Peace from Jeremiah's hand. He's got to make sure he can continue attacks. And he has a very short window to do so because Jeremiah's going to empty his hand, and then that Ensnaring Bridge will become a pretty sizable defense. So we'll see. And it's kind of this good bind he has him in. So if Jeremiah, he doesn't want to lose the Moment's Peace, but if he casts it, Deathrite will eat it.
Yeah, he can't fire it off.
Yeah, well, but if he keeps it, then it might go away. So, you know, it's not a great for him to hang on to it.
Well, he can hope that Ely just can't generate black mana. There is some chance.
That actually is true. Right now, he can't, on the battlefield, eat the Moment's Peace.
And Vendilion Click is really rough here for Jeremiah because it looked like Ely's clock was pretty passive, and now it's sped up considerably. Additionally, Jeremiah looks like he's struggling to cobble together enough action as it stands, and he probably can't afford to lose a key piece. Although Ely looks like he's going after himself here.
All right, Baleful Strix onto the bottom of the deck. He's going to draw off that. And Ely now taking his turn. So he doesn't know about the Moment's Peace. The Moment's Peace is safe from Vendilion Click. And Ely, I think it seems like he's still just digging for Null Rod, perhaps. Or at this point, maybe he's off the Null Rod fight. You know, he's close to killing Jeremiah.
I think black mana is really what he's looking for, too. I mean, that's got to be a piece of this puzzle.
Yeah, there's no more lands in the graveyard, so Deathrite Shaman doesn't even help there.
Because he has an Abrupt Decay Strand in his hand, so Ensnaring Bridge is becoming threatening. And he wants to activate this Deathrite Shaman also to be able to deal damage outside of the Moment's Peace. And there you have it. There is a Moment's Peace. That fog.
Yeah, and that fog. So Jeremiah stays at 12. And now he's going to go with his Sensei's Divining Top. He does have a Karn that he can build up toward here. Granted, interesting enough, Karn is still just a stopgap in his deck. You know, he's still heading for Eldrazi at the end of the day.
Correct. So, big untap here for Jeremiah. And Karn in hand. He's just picked up Show and Tell as well.
All right, so we see he's going to go for... He has Divining Top here. It looks like he's starting to draw a card. And he can play without fear of Abrupt Decay on his top here. He's just going to go ahead and switch the top. And this is once again for Primeval Titan. Interesting enough, he had the option to hard cast the Titan, but doesn't choose to. He's going to go ahead and Show and Tell it into play.
Yep. And this is of course tough for Ely. I mean, this is one of those decks where the Primeval Titan maybe seems a little bit on the innocuous side, but it's hard to beat it even if it triggers just the one time, and beating it the second time, the second trigger is nearly impossible.
Well, when you find it in a Cloud Post deck, a Primeval Titan finds, if you even say it finds 2 Cloud Posts, that's finding 10 mana worth of lands.
Yeah.
It, you know, each of those lands will be worth 4, and it increases Actually increases the other 2 lands by 2 apiece, so it's actually 12 mana worth of land.
And Ely's already struggling enough to cobble together sufficient pressure, so the Glimmer Posts are tough on him as well.
Yeah, Jeremiah straight for mana, no Glimmer Post. He now has a set of Cloud Posts.
And this makes a lot of sense. He can Moment's Peace Ely's next attack and then untap with a boatload of mana.
Yeah, he didn't. Interestingly, he did not get Eye of Ugin, so I presumably has. Oh, it's in his hand. There we go.
All right.
Explained. Okay. I was gonna be like, man, I thought he would want to get Eye there, but makes sense. So as early as next turn, Jeremiah is threatening to get an Emrakul lockdown. He'd be able to get another Locust, then get that Karakas and Emrakul, and go for an Emrakul lock.
Yeah.
We'll see what Ely can do about it. No Rod, no longer an option here, as Jeremiah is done using his artifacts.
And the Ensnaring Bridge is locking down the Vidillion Click at this point as well. So
yeah, just 2 cards in Jeremiah's hand. Remember that Scavenging Ooze can actually still attack for 4 here if it wants to. Granted, there is, there's a Primeval Titan, so I'm not sure he wants to do that. But what I mean is it can sneak under the bridge.
yes, correct. But the Vidillion Click cannot, and yeah, the Ely's just tapping. There's nothing to be done here.
That is 2-0. Jeremiah Rudolph continuing his run with his blue-green Cloud Post deck, defeating Ely Kassis in 2.
Yep, and like I said before this matchup started, it felt really rough for Ely. There's not a lot that he can do to stop Jeremiah's linear strategy. There's no wastelands. There's not a lot of disruption he has access to, and his clock is so slow. In both games, Ely had very good hands. I mean, all told, he had some pressure and some light disruption as much as his deck can really generate, but that's just not going to cut it against Cloud Post. And unsurprisingly, Jeremiah awaits the winner of Bertensini and Rinkovitz.
Yeah, James Rinkovich is playing Shardless Bug.